Hello, today I'm going to cover some updates we've made to the SVT concepts, so single version of the truth. The updates we've made are a process flow for the product management and engineering and IT process. Product management part of the process flow is how do you get work into development or start new projects, and the development is on once that work has been developed, how is it deployed? Today the focus is going to be on the product management process, and IT and engineering will be covering that in a later session. The new process flow is split into three main parts, which is the top part is cross Telmar, and that'll be covering change requests, bug stories, discoveries, items coming from our customer relationship management system, HubSpot. And then that goes into the process flow for how we manage critical work, hot bug fixes, stuff that's unplanned, BAU work, small and large items that need a PID and an approval by the new projects review board, and then a product development plan. And then this goes through the whole agile process, and then we come down to active sprints. But then this is where IT, final stage, where they will do the deployments and the management of actually getting that delivered, that developed code deployed. Now, at a high level, the work is split into both unplanned and planned. What is unplanned work? This is items such as bugs, last minute items, small stories, or tweaks to scope that we hadn't anticipated. And this is part of the operational process, but it's things that when the sprint has started, we need to interrupt the sprint, potentially change the scope. We want to minimize this, but it's not always possible to plan 100%. Planned work is where in an ideal world, we'd want to be doing majority of our work via planned work. Unplanned work would cover the BAU agile delivery process, agile scrum. And then this is small items can come in and fit into the process. Or you've then got your process flow for larger items. So large projects that need both product management, so your product owner, your product manager, and commercial to work together to complete a project initiation document and get us submitted to the new projects review board. That would then come round to what we've got a product development plans. And the reason we do this is quite key. So you've got your approved PID, you then go to create your product development plan, and that will then be a high level, be reviewed by both commercial and product leadership. And then you've got your prioritization, which comes into your agile delivery flow. And both the critical bugs and the BAU, all are delivered with active sprints and then go to the IT process. Now, at the start of the process within the business, you will have the commercial teams working with clients, come across a bug, they create a ticket in CRM. So they create a ticket in CRM, and then whether it's critical requirement or it's feedback from a customer or it's something they've discovered themselves, they would go then speak to the product owner. We have a list on Confluence of product owners and tech leads. So go and speak to the product owner, and really you want to go and validate the request. They want to go look through it. It could be the size of the actual work. So it could be whether it's a small piece of work that whether it's something that needs to be worked on now, or is a part of the strategy for the product. So the item may be closed at that point and not put into Jira, or we could validate it, and then it could go in to be creating writing a user story for the work. This is when really the engagement with the product owner and product manager starts, and the whole process of looking at the item, because it could be is this a critical bug? Is this a small item to be worked on, or a large item? So if it's a small item, product management and the product owner will work together to say, can we schedule this in against our current list of priorities within the BAU phase? Or is it a larger item that actually needs a PID? So we need to create a product initiation document, engage with the commercial stakeholders, and actually, and engineering, and what is the effort against the reward for that project. Complete that document so it can be reviewed by the new project's review board. So for the first instance, we're going to say that the items come in, it's been validated, they've got a user story or a bug, they've started to engage the product manager or product management. Then the first, it's a critical item, so it would be put into our sprint health channel. Yes, this is for a critical bug or a change to the scope. So this would be put into the sprint health channel. So you would have written the ticket. That could be a bug, a story, or a discovery. They must all follow the process for a well-formed bug, story, or discovery. So, for example, a bug would have steps to recreate, unexpected results, and expected results, and the impact. And why this is critical, allows the team to review it. It would allow the engineer to recreate the steps. It would allow the product owner to go off and test the steps to recreate, make sure everyone's aligned so we can actually get the bug fixed as soon as possible and in the shortest space of time. So the item would be posted into the Sprint Health channel, Slack channel, and then it's really reviewed. It's sort of working as a team. Product management are reviewing the item. There may be some feedback that it doesn't meet the SVT, and this is quite important because the item will actually get delivered a lot quicker if we follow these processes and we have all the details clearly in the ticket. Then once the ticket is ready, that's when the tech leads really get more heavily involved in the process. This is where they would look at the item, give their own feedback, of course. They would estimate the story, write the subtasks, and then they would go in to an active sprint once it is ready for them to work on. And as part of this, because we actually plan for unplanned work, we always try to ensure that teams, engineers have additional capacity for these unplanned critical bugs. Now, when we have to do a scope change, so this would also come into the sprint health, it would be a story or a discovery. What would then normally happen is that we would actually have to take something off. So the product owner and product management would work with stakeholders, say, look, we have to swap these stories around. There's only so much capacity that could be worked on in a sprint. So something would have to come off the sprint to allow this change to scope, which could be a story or a discovery. And they would follow the same process, need to ensure that a story meets SVT. So a story would be clearly written on who is it for, what are we trying to achieve and why, and then it would have an acceptance criteria. And your acceptance criteria is very much like how you would test it. I would log into it and land on a certain page. I would perform certain actions, and I can't do certain things. This is what I expect the outcome to be, and maybe you bullet point those under the acceptance criteria. Then all of those items will go into active sprints. Now, if we go back to the process of validating a request, it may be that it's not a critical item. It's an item that can be planned, but something we want to work on. So you could have a small item that's less than a sprint, or a large item that needs more effort than one sprint or many engineers to work on. So a small item can be planned into an upcoming sprint around whatever the available resources are and the priorities that have been set by the commercial and product leadership. So small items can be planned in and then go into product prioritization, and then we go into the backlog refinement process. And then they would become sprint candidates for upcoming sprints. And then in sprint planning, they would be reviewed again with the product owner and product manager and tech leads. And then we want to see if there are current priorities. So there's always these quality gates, these checkpoints. If it's not a priority, it will stay in the backlog and be reprioritized for another sprint. Then there's the whole process of engaging with, if it is a priority, the tech leads really there are working on it, reviewing to make sure that it meets SVT, make sure they've got all the information they need in the stories or the bugs or discoveries, and then it will go into an active sprint. That could be for a small item, but big items will follow this process once they're approved. So a large item, before it can get into the process of BAU, it will go through a process where it's a large amount of effort, significant amount of effort, potentially over a sprint or more. It needs a project initiation document. Now that would be product management, product owner, working with commercial to help develop a PID. So you'd look at what's the commercial opportunity, whatever that commercial opportunity is to the commercial team. They would list that out. And engineering would do, in some of our backlog refinement meetings, we would bring it and we'd bring the PID and say, would estimate it, t-shirt size, the effort that would go into to do this work. Now, and based on that, it would go to new projects review board. Now, the new projects review board, feedback can come back in the process that more information is needed on the PID, whether it's the engineering effort or commercial or other questions. The item could be rejected. It's something that strategically we just do not want to do at this time, or it's approved. Once a new project is approved, it will then go into create a product development plan. So the product owner would create a product development plan, which is a very high level document, which would set out the objectives and the scope of the work. What we intending to achieve. It would then also be a document, the testing strategy and the development strategy. Also covers when we need to go to market plans, including the marketing teams and other commercial teams across the business. These product development plans are reviewed regularly by the commercial and product leadership, and that really sets our priorities for our large projects within our development flow within BAU. So as we saw earlier, when we talked about small projects, they would fit around larger projects. These larger projects would be prioritized by both the commercial and the product team, allowing us all the teams to focus on what is our goals for delivery. And it would follow the same factory process prioritization. In the backlog, we would refine the backlog, prioritize items, ensure items are estimated, and then we go into sprint planning, where items will be accepted into a sprint. And each time we've got these quality gates, and we're checking progress or checking the priority for each of these items. Then we would engage with the tech leads in that process, and then sprint plan will be finished by final review of if this is something we want to in the next sprint, because we have to base sprints on carryover from the previous sprint. Engineers and teams availability. Is the product owner available to do testing in that sprint? People are very busy, so if all of those are green and good to go, then we can go into an active sprint. Otherwise, it will be put in as a sprint candidate for a future sprint because we just don't have the capacity. And then it will come into an active sprint, and then we would end up at the end of this process, once the product is ready to be deployed. This is where it will be hand off to IT and engineering, who would deploy the software. And this is the process flow I wanted to show. At a later date, IT and engineering will take you through the process for deployments.